Welcome to Session 3. In Session 3, we're going to be talking about competition. I know we had mentioned competition in, I think it was Session 1, but we want to go into greater detail now because competition impacts directly on your business. Unfortunately, for a lot of businesses, competition has led to the downfall of a lot of businesses. Their inability to hold their own against competition has led to several great businesses collapsing and folding up prematurely. So it's important that we spend a bit of time talking about competition. And to explain this subject matter properly, I am going to use a particular gentleman who's a professor of strategy out of the Harvard Business School in the US. His name is Professor Michael Porter. He has been, over the last 30 or so years, focused on strategy, most especially competition. So he's come up with something called the 5 forces that shape and impact on competition and ultimately on strategy. So I'm going to share with you those 5 forces that were developed by Michael Porter. They have universal appeal. So you don't have to be an American business for this thing to relate to you. Businesses all over the world have benefited from Professor Porter's postulations. So don't think that this is some alien concept that we are bringing to Nigeria. It has direct relevance on you as an entrepreneur operating within Nigeria. So there are 5 forces. The very first force is known as the degree of rivalry. The degree of rivalry. And this is simply just speaking about the intensity of the competition. So I mentioned in Session 1 that if you are one of those lucky people that you invent something that never existed before and you have legal protection in the form of a patent or in the form of a trademark or something like that prevents you from competitive activity. So remember what I said, that if the government of Nigeria or any government in any part of the world grants you a patent, it means that they are giving you a period of time where you can operate by yourself, devoid of competition from any shape, from any quarter. So in Nigeria, it is usually a 20-year period. So if you are lucky enough to be one of those people to invent those things, then for 20 years you are without competition. But from year 21, the competition will start. So this thing, you may have a 20-year respite, but from the 21st year, competition will kick in. So what are those things that you need to guard against? First and foremost, what kind of business are you doing? Because there are certain businesses, particularly the ones that have what they call a low barrier to entry, that a lot of players can come in and suddenly competition becomes very, very intense. So if you are in the bakery business or if you are in the water manufacturing business, either bottled water or sachet water or any of those things, you will find an intensity of competition. If you are in the creative space, particularly your fashion design and music and arts and so on and so forth, there are multiple people who are competing with you for the same market share. So what are the things that you can do to separate yourself? So the critical thing first and foremost is to understand the degree of competition within your sector, how intense it is. The greater the number of players, the greater will be the level of competitive activity going on there. So it is also possible for you to find a way to operate in places where there are only fewer players. Another thing you can do is location. Sometimes in certain parts of the country, there is an aggregation of so many people doing the same kind of thing in the same area. Do you know that if you cross somewhere else, if you go into another state or you go into another location, suddenly all around you, you may be the only one that is operating within that space. But again, remember what I said about competition. I said competition is affected by pricing. Competition can also be affected by differentiation. So your ability to introduce, your ability to create that niche, that unique selling proposition, that unique factor that separates you and differentiates you from other people, it will determine the longevity of your business. It does not matter. Sometimes you can have thousands of players operating in the same space, but you can look for ways of differentiating yourself. Do you know that if you are selling a commodity, what is a commodity? A commodity is one in which there is barely any difference between the output from company A and the output from company B, C, D, and E, and F. So if you are manufacturing water, so to a large extent, it is a commodity. There is really little or no difference between the water manufactured by company A, B, or C. But what are the critical things you can do? Even in that commodity scenario, do you know that you can change your packaging? Do you know that you can change your mode of delivery of your product or service? Maybe everybody else is saying to their customers, until you come to my shop and buy from me, that's the only way you can get your water. Do you know, by simply saying, stay where you are, I have a delivery van, I will deliver to you, irrespective of where you are. I will deliver free of charge, or I will deliver at a nominal fee. Do you know that that singular activity can result in a transition, a mass movement of customers from company A to your own company? So it's very, very important. Secondly, is it possible for you to operate in certain sectors where the barriers to entry are quite high? What do I mean by a high barrier to entry? Maybe the capital requirement, maybe the technological requirement, maybe the natural gifting is an essential raw material to success in that sector. If you are naturally gifted as a singer, it is only people that have that kind of gift that can compete with you on that plane. So I am not a great singer, so I probably will not be able to compete as much with you. All I am saying is look inside of yourself, look inwards, and start to determine those things that separate, those things that differentiate you from one to the other. I talked about locational advantages earlier. Just by switching your location from one part of Lagos to another, from one part of Nigeria to another, can be the difference between success and failure. I know of a business that was located in a particular area, and they made a conscious decision to move to another location, and just by that singular action, their revenues increased fivefold. So imagine if they were earning 10 naira before, their revenues increased to 50 naira just because of a change of location. So in order for you to deal with the degree of rivalry, sometimes you may need to move away from where the pack is concentrated. Sometimes you may need to break new ground and chart new courses. Number 2, Michael Porter says the threat of substitute products and services. It is one of the major issues, competitive issues, that every entrepreneur has to deal with. If customers have alternatives, it means that your ability to increase your prices, your ability to grow your market share will be constrained by the fact that somebody else is offering something similar, something that represents an alternative to what you are to what you are selling. So the threat of substitute product is real. So again, in determining how to run your business, in determining your business plan and your line of business and your location of your business and so on and so forth, you need to carry out that, remember, environmental scan. Who are the other people within the environment who are making or manufacturing or selling similar products or services, right? Are those products or services complementary to mine, or are they in direct competition with mine? It does not matter if there is direct competition. As long as you can introduce some level of differentiation into what you do, then you are largely protected. But sometimes, unfortunately, you may not be able to totally differentiate yourself because you are selling what I have described earlier as a commodity. So all you then need to do is to understand the competition, right? So you must understand the competition as much as you understand yourself. You must consistently be tracking what they are doing and what they are failing to do. You must look beyond your local environment. I mentioned that the world is a global village. Look at people who are operating in your space in India, in China, in Kenya, in Brazil. Find out what are they doing, what innovation are they brought on board, what new skills, what marketing strategies are they rolling out, to what extent have they adopted technology, and to what extent has technology helped their business. How have they been able to deal with the threat of substitute products in their own environment? Ladies and gentlemen, we must learn from each other. Thank God for this thing called the internet. It gives you access to information across from different parts of the world, and from there you can develop local strategies to help you withstand the challenges and the constraints from substitute products. Number 3, buyer power. Ladies and gentlemen, what this simply means is there a concentration, right, of your revenues, right, from certain, a handful of customers? So let me explain again, in case I did not explain clearly enough. I want you as an entrepreneur today, look at your business. Look at your performance last year or in the first 6 months of this year, right? How much did you generate in revenues? Let us say, for argument's sake, 100 million naira. Of this 100 million naira revenue or turnover that you generated, who are the major customers that accounted for it? So when you examine it and maybe you see that 2, 3, 4 customers constitute maybe about 80% of this your total revenue, ladies and gentlemen, in that kind of scenario, you are facing a threat of buyer power. It means that buyer, when they realize how significant their purchases are to you and your business, how significant their business is, their patronage is to you, do you know that on the basis of that information, they can choose to renegotiate the terms and conditions under which they do business with you? Do you know that they can insist that if you don't give me a 20% discount, I'm going to take my business away, because I know that my business is very, very important to you. I know that my business is at least 20 to 30% of your total revenue. So in that scenario, ladies and gentlemen, the balance of power has shifted completely to your customers. So ladies and gentlemen, the way to mitigate buyer power is to diversify your customer base. Some people may say, but my principal customers are blue chip companies. They are leading international, multinational companies. So I'm happy with them. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a high risk strategy. Yes, they are good customers. Yes, they have a good brand and good pedigree. But my advice to you is diversify your customer base. Do not have, and a general rule of thumb is this: I will say make sure or do your level best to ensure that your one customer does not constitute more than 20% maximum of your total revenues. So it means that you should diversify your customer base and have a minimum of 5 major customers if your business is the type that has those aggregate type transactions, those large ticket type transactions. In an ideal world, I would say 10%. So it means that if one customer decides to change the terms of trade unfairly, you can afford to let them go, because you know that your business will not collapse because of their exiting. But if you have one customer constituting 30-40%, you cannot afford to lose those customers. And I know a lot of businesses that are servicing customers at a loss. You are selling at a price that is below your cost, and that is not the way to grow a business. Your business can never be sustainable. That business will be facing bankruptcy issues if you do not redress that situation. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, in this our session, supplier power. Supplier power is similar to buyer power, but this time it is looking at it from an input perspective. Where does your critical raw material come from? Is it coming from one person, or do you have multiple suppliers? My advice to you, have multiple suppliers. Imagine an airline or an airline business that only buys planes from Boeing, the American aircraft manufacturer. If all of your fleet is Boeing, so let's assume you have 100 aircrafts in your fleet and all of them are manufactured by Boeing. Do you know that Boeing can look at you tomorrow and say, you know what, your annual maintenance fee, I'm increasing it by 200%, and there's nothing you can do because you are stuck. All of your planes come from one manufacturer, right? Boeing can say, you know what, I'm going to increase my any other charge, the parts that I'm selling to you, your annual maintenance fee, your service level agreements, I'm going to increase it overnight. So my advice to you, diversify your supplier base. So if you have 100 planes and 30 come from Boeing and 30 come from Airbus and another 20 come from McDonnell Douglas, you have diversified your risk. So it's, yes, you may feel, but I've been doing business with this supplier forever. Ladies and gentlemen, that situation can turn around in an instant. So my advice to you, diversify your customer base so it protects you. It keeps the balance of power in your favor rather than in favor of your customer. The next one is the threat of new entrants. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a reality. Nigeria, they say, is an attractive investment destination, irrespective of all of the environmental challenges. There are still a lot of foreign investors who are trooping into Nigeria in spite of our economic challenges, in spite of our political and security situation. People are still trooping into Nigeria. They are still investing significant sums in Nigeria because they see an underlying viability in Nigeria. They see our resource base. They see the strength and the capacity of our human beings. They see that in spite of economic dysfunction, political dysfunction, that this nation is abundantly blessed with human and natural resources, and that's why they still continue to come. So what that simply means for you is that you may be minding your own business, doing your pure water business, doing your fashion design business, doing your agri-processing business, and suddenly a big player, a global player lands in Nigeria, and suddenly you are competing against one of the biggest brands in the whole world. You know, in the fast foods, quick service restaurant chain, a lot of foreign brands have come into Nigeria, and they have put a lot of the local brands under pressure. Some of them go as far as situating or establishing their branch or their outlet next door to an existing player, you know, all with the plan and the intention of grabbing as much of their customers as they can. So what you can do to mitigate this threat, ladies and gentlemen, is use your local knowledge, use your understanding of the environment. There is no foreigner that can understand your market more than you as an indigenous business. So there are certain advantages that come from you living, operating, growing, running, living in Nigeria. Use those things to your advantage. So if a international quick service restaurant brand comes into Nigeria and is threatening your business, then you face our indigenous Nigerian food. I assure you that they will not be able to compete on that same level with you. Number two or number three is you can also use intellectual property rights. So there are certain things that you have. There are certain things that you can go to government and say, government, give me some level of protection against competition. So ladies and gentlemen, I have taken you through the 5 forces that Professor Michael Porter says are critical in the determination of your company strategy and helping you to navigate the significant issues around competition. And I encourage you to please take time and revisit all that I have said in session 3. Thank you very much. That brings our third session to an end. I'll see you in session 4.